to this week's midweek warm-up and Job
Still midweek.
chapter 20. It is midweek and
Barely.
I'm still in my work clothes. So
You're looking good.
you're allowed to think so.
I do.
Anyhow, Job chapter 20, last week, last chapter,
That was last
Job
week.
said basically,
My Redeemer lives.
my Redeemer lives, God's going to save me. I don't know what it's going to look like, but he's going to.
The Messiah will come.
Yes. So now, Zophar,
Yeah. The Namathite.
is going to have one more
Speech.
spiel.
It's not German.
Mm-hmm. Take it away.
In case you're wondering, spiel is the German word for play. So you shouldn't say that someone has a spiel because it's not technically proper usage of the word.
Yeah, I say it all the time.
I know you do. It's wrong.
It's incorrect for what the word
It is slang usage of it. It doesn't mean anything. But you could say a knife because that is the proper pronunciation in German.
Knife or knie.
Knie or Fuß. So foosball is correct, but it's actually a football, not a soccer ball. There we go. Moving on. Job chapter 20. And it reads, Then Zophar the Namathite answered and said, Therefore my anxious thoughts make me answer, because of the turmoil within me. I have heard the rebuke that reproaches me, and the spirit of my understanding causes me to answer. Do you not know this of old, since man was placed on earth? Then the triumphing of the wicked is short, and the joy of the hypocrite is but for a moment. Though his haughtiness mounts up to the heavens, yet his head reaches to the clouds, yet he will perish forever like his own refuse. Those who have seen him will say, Where is he? He will fly away like a dream and not be found. Yes, he will be chased away like a vision of the night. The eye that saw him will see him no more, nor will his place behold him any more. His children will seek the favor of the poor, and his hands will restore his wealth. His bones are full of his youthful vigor, but it will lie down with him in the dust. Though evil is sweet in his mouth, and he hides under his tongue, though he spares it and does not forsake it, but still keeps it in his mouth, yet his food in his stomach turns sour, becomes cobra venom within him. He swallows down riches and vomits them up again. God casts him out of his belly. He will suck the poison of cobras. The viper's tongue will slay him. He will not see the streams, the rivers flowing with honey and cream. He will restore that for which he labored and will not swallow it down. From the proceeds of business he will get no enjoyment. For he has oppressed and forsaken the poor. He has violently seized a house which he did not build. Because he knows no quietness in his heart, he will not save anything he desires. Nothing is left for him to eat. Therefore his well-being will not last. In his self-sufficiency he will be in distress. Every hand of misery will come against him. When he is about to fill his stomach, God will cast on him the fury of his wrath, and he will rain it on him while he is eating. He will flee from the iron weapon. A bronze bow will pierce him through. It is drawn and comes out of his body. Yes, the glittering point comes out of his gall. Terrors come upon him. Total darkness is reserved for his treasures. An unfanned fire will consume him. It shall go ill with him who is left in his tent. The heavens will reveal his iniquity, and the earth will rise up against him. The increase of his house will depart, and his goods will flow away in the day of his wrath. This is the portion from God for a wicked man, the heritage appointed to him by God. Does it sound like a pleasant speech to you?
Well, it doesn't sound like he's directly saying that this is Job, or that any of that's going to apply to Job. It almost, the way that it starts out is, I feel convicted.
Well, he doesn't feel convicted. He's really saying, you offended me with what you're saying, and this is my response to you. That's what he's saying in verse 3. I heard the rebuke that reproaches me, and the spirit of my understanding causes me to answer. So he's saying, because I know that I'm right, this is what I have to say to you. So, it's a weird speech. I mean, if you think about it in the grand scheme of things, obviously what he's saying here is right. This is what does happen to people that are wicked. But it is by no means accurate to every wicked person, unfortunately. Because he's drawing it here and saying, basically, if you're a bad guy, you're going to get what's coming to you immediately. And that's not the way it works. If that's how it worked, then we wouldn't have people like Hitler, like Stalin, like many of the popes, King Henry VIII. you have all these different people that spent their entire life taking advantage of other people and taking things from them, and in many cases murdering hundreds, thousands, or millions of people.
Mm-hmm.
They certainly didn't die in this case or have all their stuff taken from them. Obviously, when they died, it was all taken from them, but that's not what Zophar is getting to. He's trying to say that throughout their life, this will be taken from them because they're bad. So I'll start going through it verse by verse, and obviously, I jumped ahead since Emily pointed out verse 3.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. I asked you what you thought about it, and that's what you thought. So obviously he starts, and he's basically saying, you made me feel frustrated and upset at you because you said I was wrong, what I said earlier. And so he's basically reiterating what he said earlier. And so in verse 4 it says, do you not know this of old, since man was placed on earth? And so he's basically saying, time is telling us the story that bad guys are going to die. And he says, verse 5, that the triumphing of the wicked is short, and the joy of the hypocrite is but for a moment. So, as we've been mentioning the last few weeks, they'd just come out of the flood, probably within a few decades earlier, maybe up to 10. And so they saw firsthand that everyone wicked on the planet died. We don't know how many people that was. Could have been 1 million. Could have been 100 million. It could have been 1 billion. We don't know. It's just, it was a large number that got to very quickly because humans had lots of time to reproduce, so they reproduced a lot.
Well, they were alive for so long.
Yeah, well, when you're an adult for 900 years, that's a lot of babies. And when your babies start having babies at 25, that's 70 generations right there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going from 2 people to at least 7 million. Just one family line. If you go with that expanded rate. And obviously a lot of them would have a lot more than just, 2.54 kids, I think is the average right now in the US.
Yeah.
More like 124 kids would be the average type thing. So we expanded greatly. But they came for that and go, okay, you're bad, you get killed because God's going to kill you. But they're missing the point that God said at the end of the flood, I will not destroy the earth in this way again. He's not saying he won't ever destroy the population of the earth again, because obviously in Revelation he's going to. But to this point, he's never done anything like this before. Well, again, sorry. Because obviously he did it with the flood.
Mm-hmm.
And so it goes on in verse 6, with those highness mounts up to the heavens, and his head reaches to the clouds, yet he will perish forever like his own refuse. And so, yeah, that's accurate.
Of course.
If you're a sinner, you're going to die. And you'll go to hell. Unless you're a Christian. Which obviously they had no concept of being a Christian yet at this point, so they can't really get there. But it says, those who have seen him will say, where is he? He will fly away like a dream and not be found. Yes, he will be chased away like a vision of the night. The eye that saw him will see him no more, nor will his place behold him anymore. So that's like, when you always see in old movies, you have someone going through and they're always looking for the bad guy. Going, oh, well, where's old Charlie? And they say, oh, we haven't seen Charlie for years. They didn't bother thinking about where Charlie was. It's just, he's gone. And that's what this is talking about, is if you're bad, you're going to disappear and never be seen from again. People just won't bother thinking of you. Which, I'm sure bad people aren't exactly the best at cultivating relationships, because they're building their wealth and everything off of taking advantage of relationships. So if you're in the mafia, I guess they'll forget where you are because they might remember where they buried you. But that's really what this is talking about, is that you won't have anything meaningful to pass on to anyone else. And so it goes on to say, his children will seek the favor of the poor, and his hands will restore his wealth. His bones are full of his youthful vigor, but will lie down with him in the dust. So even though his kids are still trying to pick up where things were and restore life, he's dead. He's gone. He's not getting anything. And I think this is probably the closest thing here to a jab at Job in this passage, is saying, yeah, everything's going to die because you're all dead. It's not very pleasant, but when you're dead, you're dead. Not really much else to be said about that one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can't really make any more decisions after you're dead.
Well, yeah.
You can't pack things after you're dead.
The point.
You can't run your business after you're dead.
It's kind of final.
Even if you're buried in your pink Cadillac, you will not drive it ever again. Sorry, Mary Kay. That's just the way it works.
Care about the Cadillac. I don't think it was Mary Kay that was buried in a Cadillac.
Elvis was buried in his Cadillac, but it was not pink.
It's so creepy.
I don't like Cadillacs, so I don't know why you want to bury one.
Anyway.
But okay. And so in 12 it says, though evil is sweet in his mouth, and he hides under his tongue, though he spares it and does not forsake it, but still keeps it in his mouth, yet his food in his stomach turns sour, it becomes cobra venom within him. So basically saying that he really embraces doing bad things. And even if they really like doing bad things, it's not going to take care of them. And it's going to make everything wholesome in them go bad.
Mm-hmm.
So have you ever heard that anywhere?
Probably.
Probably.
I don't remember.
Okay, so if you're ever in the DARE program, which if you were born in the 80s, you were in the DARE program because let's face it, you were. Or you watched cartoons on Saturday morning and saw the little thing where they crack an egg and fry it and say, this is your brain on drugs. Yeah. That's basically what it's talking about here. He wants that bad thing that he does so much that makes everything else pale in comparison and just fall away. And so even if he tries to do something good, it's not going to help him any, and he's just going to end up being worse off.
Mm-hmm.
And is that accurate?
I don't know. I got lost.
She's lost.
I'm so.
Are we still in Montana?
Yes.
It is almost 11 o'clock, so.
So
it's
anyway,
her fault.
rephrase the question or repeat, please.
Is this accurate, what he's saying here about how mankind will continually go downhill if they're embracing bad things?
Yes. But.
But what?
So, obviously, mankind has gone downhill as far as, like, as a whole. Not because there are new bad things that people are doing, but because we've now come to a point where a lot of those bad things are looked at as virtuous or good.
We've also streamlined them so you do them much more easily.
Yeah, but I don't know. Again, there's nothing new. There's nothing.
Not in Ecclesiastes.
I don't know. Solomon. I don't know how to get to where I'm trying to go, so.
Well, this actually mirrors a lot of the stuff that's said in Ecclesiastes in this passage, but it's coming from a different perspective on it. And so what I would like to point out is that all this is very accurate in how people work until they are repentant. So if you have an unrepentant man, they're never going to acknowledge their fault, really. Even if they say that they're wrong at something, they'll probably find a way to explain it away or cast the blame to someone else.
I'm sorry you
were an idiot, but
felt hurt by my action rather than I'm sorry my action hurt you.
yes. Which obviously there are times where that's not necessarily something to apologize for, but that's not where we're going to.
No, but
It's the I'm sorry that I ran over your kid with my car, but it's his fault for playing in the street type thing.
it really kind of, and this started to be a thing not too terribly long ago. The whole sorry, not sorry, and they think it's cute or funny or something, but really they're just being so
To bring jerks.
rude and awful. Like, don't say you're sorry unless you are. Sorry. I really am sorry. It makes me so frustrated.
Not sorry
that people
that
say
she's sorry,
that.
but she's sorry that she's not sorry.
It's
Sorry?
It's just so anti-biblical. It's so dishonest and rude, and it's not funny. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
So we're not sorry, apparently.
I
We're
am.
sorry.
I'm sorry that I got on a soapbox.
Soapbox needs to stand on sometime. Anyway, so going on from there, we have people that are doing bad things. And so obviously that's sinning. But sinning is very much embraced by our bodies. And if we're not repentant, embraced by our minds, and it will continue to drag us down. And that's really what he's trying to get to here. And so in verse 15 he says, he swallows down riches and vomits them up again. God casts them out of his belly. He will suck the poison of cobras. The viper's tongue will slay him. That sounds really fun. I'm not a fan of snakes. Neither is Indiana Jones.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you can watch our movie reviews about such if you like. They're on here also.
Shameless plug.
It's fair. It's for one of our videos. And so here it's going on with the same thing, really. He's saying that even if he gets good things, it's not going to satisfy. Because he's going to be still stuck in the spiral of downward decay.
Well, and it seems to me this section, it mentions cobras and vipers over and over.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like he's essentially implying this person is pursuing evil specifically and like reveling in it.
Yeah, that's pretty much what he's going through. It's not just someone that, oops, I did something wrong. This is the person that is full on embracing it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's essentially what he's equating Job to. Is you didn't just do something bad, you're just full on turned around, running the wrong direction right now. Mm-hmm. And so obviously the Bible uses different terms for such, and backsliding is one that seemed to have been stuck with Southern Baptists for decades for some reason. I don't know why.
That's true.
Because most of the time you're not backsliding, you got on the bus and went the other direction. You're kind of like Jonah. Instead of going to Nineveh, you're going to go to Joppa, which is 1,000 miles the wrong direction.
And then God says, no.
Yeah, but this passage doesn't have a giant fish that's going to come eat him. This ends with he gets thrown overboard and he dies part.
Yeah.
Because this is just saying, no matter what you do, if you're bad, you're going to die. Because that's what you deserve. And obviously, in the long run, yeah, that's what will happen if you don't turn away from it. Mm-hmm. But we're not there yet. So in verse 17, it says, he will not see the streams, the rivers flowing with honey and cream. I don't understand why you have a river flowing with honey. But that's kind of nasty. It's kind of like Willy Wonka out in the middle of Israel.
Well, isn't that milk and honey? Like, this is previous to them being in the promised land. Isn't that?
It's a reference to being provided for.
Yeah.
Which is still weird. Now, if it said that you're going to go to a land full of cheesecake and Pepsi, then that would be amazing. But milk and honey, that's not very appealing.
I think milk and honey is appealing. Cheesecake and Pepsi is not.
Definitely cheesecake.
Sleeping
Pepsi
is appealing, but
never sleep again if you avoid it. So in verse 18 it says, he will restore for that for which he labored and will not swallow it down. From the proceeds of business he will get no enjoyment. So it's basically saying that even if he turns and starts doing things right and works a job, instead of trying to be malicious and underhanded to get money, it's not going to do anything for him at that point because he's going to be so messed up. My Bible's page is very curly for some reason. Mm-hmm. Verse 19 says, for he has oppressed and forsaken the poor. He has violently seized a house which he did not build. And so, obviously, we have people nowadays that definitely like to oppress and forsake the poor. In many ways, that's Walmart. Because they like to do that to people. They'll take advantage of any employee they have. They get away with it. Because that's what they do. But that's what pretty much most corporations do. Because you're expendable. That's the long and short of it. And it says he's violently seized a house which he did not build. And so that's not just someone going and foreclosing on a house like in 2008 type thing. This is going and you kill the owners and, hey, it's my house now. Which is much closer to the vineyard parable in Matthew from Jesus. Mm-hmm. And so obviously this used to happen an awful lot. It still happens today. Not nearly as much as it used to, but it's saying that you did not come by it honestly or legitimately. Mm-hmm. And because he knows no quietness in his heart, he will not save anything he desires. Nothing is left for him to eat, therefore his well-being will not last. In his self-sufficiency he will be in distress. Every hand of misery will come against him. When he's about to fill his stomach, God will cast on him the fury of his wrath, and he will rain it on him while he is eating. So it's basically saying here that because he has been sinning over and over again, he's upset. And even if he doesn't show it on the outside, he knows it on the inside. And there's nothing that will make it better. And so he's trying to make himself up to be the most amazing thing there is, take care of everything that he has because he can do it on his own. And then God says, no, you can't do it on your own. Which, that is true. God will definitely tell you that you need him to make it through life. Mm-hmm. You don't have to listen to him, but God's going to tell you that. But then he goes on and says God's going to cast the fury of his wrath on him, which that's a bit more iffy nowadays. Once again, this is coming out of the flood, and so they saw, well, second generation, maybe third generation out, saw the effects of the flood. And so they knew that God killed every unrighteous person on the planet. So that's a pretty clear picture. But there aren't many examples past that point where God rains fire from heaven. I mean, there's a few. Definitely don't get me wrong. There are people that get eaten by the earth. There's lots of examples where people are killed directly by God for their wrongdoing. But that's a very small portion of the whole with bad people. Because if that was true, then you'd have Omri and Ahab and Jezebel all getting whacked immediately, and that does not happen. Mm-hmm. Although falling off a tower and getting eaten by dogs is not exactly a pleasant way to die either. And so it goes from that to what would be more fitting nowadays, which is being on the run. He says, he will flee from the iron weapon, a bronze bow will pierce him through. It is drawn and comes out of the body. It's the glittering point comes out of his gall. Terror has come upon him. Total darkness is reserved for his treasures, and unfamed fire will consume him. It shall go ill with him who is left in his tents. And so it's basically saying that the bad guy's going to get chased down by the righteous and get killed for it. Which, obviously, it does happen. If you're a bad guy and you're running from the police and you shoot at them or something, they will probably shoot you. Mm-hmm. That's the way it works. If you're a terrorist that attacks the U.S., we will probably find you and kill you. That's the way it works for terrorists. And that's how it's worked throughout history. You go and you kill the bad guys. That's the nation's job. You have to protect your interests by generally removing the opposing interests. Mm-hmm. That's why David was ordered to go and kill the Philistines. It's not because the Philistines were all in all bad. It's God knew they weren't going to turn to him. Mm-hmm. And so David was given the order to go remove them so that the people of Israel could not be turned to idolatry. And because they didn't wipe them out, people of Israel turned to idolatry. And so it goes on to the last part here, and it says, the heavens will reveal his iniquity, and the earth will rise up against him. The increase of his house will depart, and his goods will flow away in the day of his wrath. This is the portion from God for a wicked man, the heritage appointed to him by God. And so this is probably the culmination of his argument, is basically saying, Job, you got all your stuff taken away because God is mad at you because you sinned against him. And there's plenty of people throughout history that God's been mad at because they did bad things. But there aren't many people in history that had all their stuff taken away and had the heavens and the earth rise up against them. I mean, there aren't many. I mean, there's two brothers that were wiped out because the earth ate them literally in the book of Exodus. And those were Aaron's grandkids. I
thought there were a bunch of people.
Well, the brothers were sinning, and so it ate their entire household. Oh. And the earth went and ate them. That'd be really awesome to see.
Or terrifying.
Same difference.
Terrifying.
It's the way it goes. Obviously, Jonah was eaten by a fish, and that's pretty close to rising up against him. And then you had the priests of Baal that were killed by fire coming down from heaven, and then Elijah went around and massacred all of them with his knife. So there are definitely examples where this will happen, but this, by and large, is not what happens to people that are bad. Now, in the long run, they're going to die, and they're going to go to hell, which effectively still does the same thing. But you need to be aware that just because someone is getting lots of stuff here in this life, and apparently is doing really well, that doesn't mean that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. Mm-hmm. Being rich does not mean that you are godly. Being rich does not mean that you have it all going on. Being rich just means that you happen to have money.
Well, and I think the reverse is true, specifically.
Hey, you can have poor people that are very strong Christians. You can also have poor people that are very opposed to God and blame God for not having anything.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily matter what your circumstances are. It's how you approach it and what you're looking at with God and respect. Because it all comes down to God gives it, God can take it away. That's what the Bible says repeatedly, and that's Job's answer was initially is, God blessed me with all this stuff. God has the right to take it back. Mm-hmm. And his friends just don't get it. For some reason, his friends think that stuff takes away, oh, he must be a bad guy. That's not necessarily the way it works. Although evidently Emily is falling asleep at this point.
I'm not falling asleep. I am listening. I'm just...
That's because she's falling asleep. So, do you have anything you'd like to say about this passage else than Zophar is basically saying, Job, you were a bad boy. God took your stuff away.
So, the last verse, this is the portion this is the portion from God for a wicked man, the heritage appointed to him by God. So again, the whole chapter has been him saying, Job, you are this awful person who loves sin and all of that, and you're so opposed to God, and everything that I've said in this final verse, 29, he's basically claiming everything I said is from God because you're wicked.
Because I'm right and my worldview says that you're wrong.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much what he's been saying. He hasn't directly attacked Job. He hasn't directly said Job is a bad man like his other two friends have been doing. He's just been beating around the bush, so to speak. And he hasn't directly said what's on his mind. Because like Emily said, his mind really is, Job, you're the bad guy. Mm-hmm. You deserve it. It's not fair. It's definitely inaccurate. Mm-hmm. But once again, his friends are speaking platitudes, and platitudes are generally accurate. Mm-hmm. The bad people will generally reap what they sow. They will get bad things for their bad deeds. That's how it works. He says that those who kill with the sword will be killed with the sword. So you have gangbangers that go and shoot people, they tend to get shot. People that rob stuff, their stuff tends to get taken away. That is generally how it works. But it's by no means a guarantee that you're going to have everything taken away because you're bad.
Mm-hmm. In fact, I think especially now, well, maybe it's not that different from then, but it seems like now the world system is set up like socially, especially the Western world, kind of congratulates or praises those wrong things and gives, I don't know.
I think they summarized it very nicely in God's Not Dead when Dean Cain is talking to his mom at the end. And she says, well, he goes and says, my life's been really good and you're stuck here in this nursing home and you can't do anything because you don't remember anything. So what good is your faith done? And she's just kind of staring off, and then as he's about to leave, she said, sometimes the devil gives people good life so they don't realize what they're missing. Mm-hmm. And that's really what he's talking about, is that sometimes bad people don't get what's coming to them. Because why would you seek God if you have everything you want? Mm-hmm. And so, obviously God sometimes steps in and fixes that. Sometimes he doesn't. It's his prerogative, not ours.
Well, and it's not a matter of we need to just concede and be like, well, God's going to do whatever he wants and I'm going to be irritated about it. But it's, God is sovereign, and whatever decision he makes, whatever choice or direction he leads, that's the right one, not just, I guess, going about it with a good attitude, not a grudging, like, well, I guess God wants us to do this. Like, do what God says. I don't know.
Well, it's not only that, but it's, like it says much later in the Bible, is that God is working out everything to the good of those who love him. So the bad people may be getting something for now, but it's benefiting good people. Ultimately. We don't know how necessarily. We may see it eventually. We may not. But we know that God is working it out to take care of his people.
Mm-hmm.
So before Emily falls asleep, I guess we should go ahead and pray and close the video then.
I'm sorry.
Unless you have something else you want to say.
No.
Okay, so
I'm
go
very
ahead.
tired.
Go ahead and bow with us as Emily falls asleep. Dear Lord and Heavenly, thank you for this day, and thank you that you are a great and mighty God. We just thank you for the example of Job and for his 3 bad friends, and then for his good friend like you that we're going to get to soon. Just ask that you would help us to keep you in sight and stay focused on you and your vision for us, and help us to understand and know that your plan is always what's best. Help us to make wise decisions, just be focused on you, and just thank you for your son coming and dying on the cross for us. Thank you for everything you've done. And thank you that you are willing to step into history and to bring us back in relationship with you. Thank you for everything you've done. In your wonderful name, I pray. Amen.
Thank you for being with us tonight. Thank you for
Watching it tomorrow.
making it through the whole video. Let us know your thoughts and comments down below. Let us know, I guess, if you have any questions or concerns.
Or would you rather eat cheesecake or honey?
No, so I thought we were talking earlier about the idea, so this is completely random. The idea of cheesecake with meat on it, is it a good thing? Something you would try or not something you would try? Because I don't think I would ever eat that because it sounds disgusting.
Steak cake.
Cheese steak cake.
They do make those, huh?
Oh,
It's like bacon flavored cheesecake.
gross, gross. That should not be a thing. So,
But it is.
anyhow, thanks for tuning in, for joining us, and we will talk with you soon.